before we put our new building in service, we need to make a few changes to the surrounding grounds. When we had our building here for testing, test fitting a little while ago, noticed that the pallet storage building is just wide of the area that had already been built up here as the floor for the facility. So this base here has to be widened at least that much, where you see the dark black line. But in addition, we've talked about having a laneway or roadway that comes around the side of the building for trucks to pull in here and back up into the loading dock that's in the pallet storage area. So in fact, we're going to have to fill up this whole area here and bring it up roughly to the same level as the base of the building. Probably going to have to cut off the corner here. It's going to look odd with this piece sticking out. I never really liked this anyway, so we're going to nip that off and run the edge of the asphalt along a line here through the grass here, and we'll have to fill in the two tracks here to allow the trucks to come out from the pallet storage loading dock and make their way across here and onto the roadway, onto the street. So I've got my drywall mud ready to go, but I don't want to fill up the whole area with drywall mud. So I've got plenty of leftover scraps of masonite board that I'll be able to use here, doubling them up a little bit to fill out that area here as well. And I'll just cut them off to fit and then fill in the edges and corners in this area here with the drywall mud and sand it smooth, and hopefully that will do for our new base for the building. And here we see our masonite all cut out and layered in. Just has to be glued in with carpenter's glue so it doesn't move around, and after that we fill in with a top coat of drywall mud, sand it smooth, matching with the existing floor, and I think we're good to go. Okay, so we've got this entire area here filled in and sanded smooth using our drywall compound. A good flat wide spatula is very helpful, useful in carrying out the existing level onto the new level, so we get a matching level. So it's both underneath the area of the pallet storage area, and as we talked about before, there's the roadway beyond here for trucks to drive around past the corner of the building and to back into the loading dock, and then beyond to exit onto the road. If you don't have one of these drywall sanding bars, you want to do this kind of work, it's probably something you want to invest in. Makes for very, very smooth finishes in your sanding, especially if you're making roads. Now, we also filled in, as promised, the area in front of the building. So this was ballasted and grassy area before, but since the trucks have to exit this area to get back to the road and onto the street, this whole area was filled in. It took several attempts. When you're putting this thickness of drywall in, it does shrink and crack, and so you have to sand and refill and sand and refill, and then make sure it's sanded smooth to the tops of the rail heads. And also in this case, there's a bit of a grade here because the road was already sloping down towards the street, so we have to make sure we've got a smooth grade up to the top of rail. Probably do with a bit more sanding here, but as you'll notice, I've made an edge line here for the asphalt using just some old cork. And the idea is to have the cork be a tight fit between the rails. So these are pieces that were slit and pressed in firmly between the rails, and that way when you are spreading the drywall mud, it butts up against the cork, and you get a nice fine line. So the next step is to pull these pieces off carefully, and then with a fine file adjust the edges of the asphalt to make a clean edging back down to the top of ties, and then dress up this curve here so that it matches the edge of the asphalt. Okay, we're going to try and remove the cork here live on video. Let's see how this goes. These weren't put in very deep, so they should be easy to pull out by hand. There we go. And we want to do this slowly. Oh, it came out quite nicely. So far so good. There we go. Yeah, this piece is a little stuck. Alright, we're going to need to do a bit of work on this edge here. A bit of plaster seeped underneath, but that's okay. We can fix that. And now the big piece. There we go. Ooh, that came up with a bit of ballast. Well, okay, not terrible. I think we can fix that. So there we go. Let's take a closer look at that. Not too bad, not too bad. So as I mentioned before, we just need to file this down at a 45-degree angle to mark the edge of asphalt where it comes back down to the top of ties. A little bit of cleanup, and when we're done we'll be able to touch up with a bit of ballast, but not too bad. Ultimately, of course, we also have to cut flangeways in the plaster along each rail, and my favorite tool for doing that is a dentist pick. Now, I've had this for years. In fact, I have a drawer full of them. I asked my dentist if he had any leftovers or partly worn tools, and he just opened a drawer and grabbed a whole bunch of them for me. So these, I find, are some of the best tools for carving. I use them extensively in doing my rock carvings on other parts of the layout, and I find them terribly useful for running a fine line along the inside edge of rails for crossing. And once you get deep enough, it's almost exactly the size of the flange inside, so you don't get very wide flanges. You can see this is what I did on the inside of the building here. It's using the exact same tool some years ago. So that's kind of the next step in finishing this off before we get to painting. Alright, here we can see the flangeways have been gouged out with our favorite little tool here. And you can see we've also trimmed up the edge here, added in a little bit of fill here, made everything nice and smooth so that when it's painted it'll just look like continuous asphalt. One of the things I do to make sure I've got the right flangeway thickness is I use a simple nail file as a final pass through to make sure I've got the correct width all the way through. It's just about the right thickness, so that when you run some cars through like this, there's no worry that your flangeways aren't wide enough. Of course, we'll have to try it with the locomotive, make sure that we haven't got any residue of plaster in the way of good electrical conduct. And once we've done that, we'll be ready for painting. I've chosen a light sand color to seal the plaster and to give it a neutral base for the colors that are going to come on top. See here, it's Americana acrylic paint. I just happen to have this. Didn't go out special for it. I've got a drawer full of different colors. This will do fine. The main area underneath the building is going to have to be repainted to a base concrete color. The area at the back will be a combination of the asphalt road and green grass, and the area in front here will ultimately be asphalt to tie into the main access roadway. I traced the outline of the building onto the surrounding area, the foundation for it, and masked the area and gave it a coat of concrete gray using the same spray can that I used for the floor of the pallet storage area. So this worked out well, easy and quick. Anytime you paint around tracks, you need to remember to very quickly remove the paint from the top of the railheads before the paint has a chance to set up or harden. So for that I've used this Walther's abrasive tool. And here we can see the outline of the foundation of the building. Concrete colored floor is done, and all around the outside and in front of the building we see the asphalt area. This is just the first coat. I'm using the Woodland Scenics top coat asphalt here for the base coat. It's quite dark when it goes on full strength, and it's more like a stain than it is a paint, so it does require a second coat. So because I don't want to have it too dark, I want it to look a little bit used, I'm going to mix a bit of this product with some lighter tones of gray to get a bit more of a used asphalt look out of it. After done with that, backdrop needs a bit of touching up. You can see there's been some filling in done where I've got a bit of blue styrofoam filling in the gap that's in the wall, and once that's sanded down, I'll put that final coat of sky blue that I've been promising myself to do for some time. Now you see the base asphalt is done. This is the second coat. It's a mixture of the Woodland Scenics top coat system and some craft paint, all-purpose acrylic. This is charcoal, and I use this glass cap for mixing a little bit at a time. That way I get slight variations as I go along. This is actually a a furniture foot from many years ago when they used to be made of glass, and it makes for a very handy little mixing dish. And this is all there is to it. Squeezing out a little bit of the charcoal. It's a rather thick acrylic. Either that or it's very old, but it still works. And then squeezing out a few drops of the top coat because it's very dark and very strong. And we mix it up. Make sure it's thoroughly mixed. The interesting thing about this paint, though, is it goes on quite light and then darkens up. So I'm always surprised by the color, and I end up adding a few more drops because it looks too light and then it darkens as it dries. But let's give that a go. I do use a small brush because to get the areas between the track you do need a small brush, and I just can't be bothered to have multiple brushes in use at the same time, so I just keep going with a small brush. It gives you control in small areas, and you'll see when this dries it'll look quite dark. Well, as you can see, things have changed since the last clip. The asphalt color, it was too dark for my taste. I'm trying to get the look of an asphalt area that's dusty and well worn, as you can see from the Google photos of the prototype facility. So I've redone it here. I've used a different mix. It's mostly this light gray. This is called Rainy Day Gray. Let's say 10 drops of this and 2 drops of the asphalt top coat, which, as I say, is very dark. It doesn't take much to give it a darker look. But I've also added a drop of this asphaltum. As you can tell by the name, it's meant to approximate asphalt. It's actually a reddish brown, so what it does, that one little drop, it gives it a warmer tone, which I think makes it give it an overall better used or worn asphalt look. Giving the lighter color here also allows you to darken it in selected areas if you want to have tire marks, etc., to give it that well-worn look. So I think it's better to start with a light and then darken it up through weathering rather than going with a darker asphalt, which, while prototypic for a brand new paved surface, you know, how long would you have this facility lasting with a fresh coat of black asphalt? It wouldn't last very long. So went through the trouble of redoing all this. It did take a couple of coats to get it to set because light color on a dark coat needs a couple of coats. I also managed to get the backdrop painted in the sky blue. I had to go to Home Depot and get a fresh batch because it's been probably 10 years since I painted the original backdrop, and I didn't have any of the original. Fortunately, I saved the mix code for the blue. I also have an original paint chip, and did the test at Home Depot to make sure that the numbers matched, and sure enough it did. So I managed to get that all painted, and now we have a fresh backdrop to work with. One of the things you may have noticed here is that the running surface of the asphalt area actually is 2 different levels. The main surface into the building stays at the railhead height, and the inbound truck movements dip down a little bit as they follow the natural terrain around the building. I did this for a little bit of visual effect. but realize now I can't leave it like this. You wouldn't want trucks falling over the edge here, so there is a need for some kind of retaining wall or barrier here. And so what I've done is cut a strip of 060 styrene. What I did is I held a rectangular strip along the edge here firmly and traced the line of the top of the asphalt with a pencil, and then from there measured 5/16 of an inch all the way along the line to give it roughly a 30-inch height above the top of this area here, which is roughly the height of a standard Jersey barrier, and then cut it out, gave it a bit of a taper along the end, and cut it down a little bit as well here where it starts to run beside the building, and then started to curve it so you'll see it'll look something like this when it's glued in place. Of course, it'll be colored in a concrete color, and this will divide the path for the incoming trucks and the outgoing trucks quite nicely. Because it is a thick styrene, you can bend it and it'll hold the shape. It just takes time to do this and slowly get it to take the shape you want it to take, just with patience, slowly bending it, because there's nothing worse than trying to glue something into place when it's straight and you're trying to get it to be curved. So this is almost fitting the curve of the roadway standing on its own, so it'll be easy enough to glue it in place after I have painted it a concrete color, of course. One of the other benefits of going with a lighter color for the asphalt is that it allows you to simulate repair jobs or patchwork. And I thought I'd experiment a bit here, since I already had some darker sections that I'm repainting light. I randomly put some small sections of masking tape on the darker sections and painted over them, and let's have a look and see how they look. I guess you have to be careful when you're taking off masking tape, because you might pull up some. So you see there's a spot there. And to finish these rectangular sections off, I would run around the edges with a very fine tip black marker to simulate the sealant that is typically applied to repair jobs. Here. So that looks interesting. Here we see the results of our very, very quick forest backdrop exercise. Started with a gray felt marker, making trunk lines, branch lines for trees, and then dabbing on with a sponge brush a mixture of leaf green and grass green, and I would randomly mix the proportions of the color to get different variations of green. So this effectively camouflages the entrance, or the hole in the wall, which is the pullback for the switching lead. Once that was done, I gave the surrounding areas a mix of brown and green, which will serve as the base for grass that will be applied with the static applicator. Most of the backdrop is going to be hidden by the building, so there isn't a need to overdo it. You can see a few carefully placed trees to camouflage sharp corners or edges, and to give the backdrop a bit of a three-dimensional look to it. But I think that's more than enough, as the building is going to draw your attention away from the wall anyway. And you can see the static grass has been applied, varying shades, all the way up to the connection to the main road. And on either side of the entrance, we've also applied some gravel as a shoulder to the road. So the only thing left will be the retaining wall that goes along this edge. And what we've done for that here, added some thin strips of 010 styrene to simulate a bit of texture on the retaining wall. And here's the other piece. So this will go like that. And this piece, this. And here we see an example of the different colored asphalt. So we're almost done. These retaining walls will get a coat of concrete coloring, and then we'll install them, and then the building gets installed. And now the grand reveal of the completed project.